morning and welcome. I choose to be an optimist, just like I choose to be a leader. That means that we must use a different lens than we've been using this last year. It's choosing to look at how we've grown, what we've learned, what we're capable of, and what is truly important. That's pretty tough given this last year. As we look at this last year, we are all more grateful for the relationships that we have, the support systems that we have that bring us up, lift us up, help us when we're down and when we struggle. Our friends, our families, our colleagues. We've learned how important we are to each other and how fragile our ecosystem is. Those simple connections that you have throughout the day truly feed your soul. Seeing your friends and your loved ones truly make you who you are. This last year, we've learned how important these relationships are. As the Boys and Girls Club, we've always advocated for the importance of mentorship. And this last year, as we've evolved our business model and the way that we serve the community, we've been reminded how important it is to have people in your corner. We've also hopefully learned to be nicer to each other, to appreciate our differences and value perspective. And whether that was COVID or racial injustice, we've been reminded how each of us play a role in strengthening a community and making this a better place to live, not just for ourselves, but for each other. We've been reminded how we each are a piece of a puzzle that when brought together, we create a community. And only when we're accountable to each other and we are working together towards the same goals, can we truly set the example for our young people, create a better place, and hand them a better world. Many years ago, I had a close friend tell me that the best way to describe a nonprofit is to imagine the community without them. Imagine with me, it's March of last year. You're a nurse, a single mom. You work long hours. Sometimes you struggle, but you always push through because you want the best life for your kids. And then COVID happens. And while some of us are in a profession that we were able to work remote, she can't. In fact, she needs to jump to the front line and serve at the front lines of this global pandemic. Imagine the stress and the anxiety and the fear that you have to join the front lines of a global pandemic while also taking care of your family at home. Imagine the stress, knowing that you may get sick and bring that virus home to your kids. Imagine the fear that your kids have that mom is putting herself at risk in order to keep other people healthy. Imagine finding out that the schools are closed, your kids must learn from home, and you don't have a support system that can help you with that. Let that settle in. Imagine the weight on her shoulders. This is why our Boys and Girls Club responded the way that we did this last year. This is why we evolved the way that we serve the community and the way that we restructured the entire organization so that we can be here for her. The best way to describe a nonprofit is to imagine what the community would look like without them. Can you imagine this last year without all of the families that depended on us not having the resources and the support and the comfort that we provided them? Can you imagine the almost 300,000 meals that we distributed not making their way to hungry bellies? Can you imagine the technology, the Wi-Fi cards, the laptops, the iPads, the headphones that we distributed to close the digital divide for low-income students not making their way into these homes? Can you imagine the almost 20 blood drives that we organized with the American Red Cross not collecting the blood that will literally save people's lives. Imagine what this community would look like if the Boys and Girls Club wasn't there this last year. Our purpose is to step up and stand up and provide a voice for those that do not have a voice, to be there for the people that need us most, to evolve however we need to evolve in order to meet the needs of our families and those that are most vulnerable. And whether that's that single parent or that dual working household, or those kids that are vulnerable, those families that are food insecure, the club has been there and will continue to be there. And will continue to evolve however we need to evolve in order to continue meeting the needs of our community. Our purpose is to be there. Our purpose is for people to depend on us, to be there to support them and be the organization that they need us to be. Our purpose is not to be an after-school program. Our purpose is to be a beacon of hope, a symbol for change, a haven for safety, a place that people can rely on, no matter what, during good times and certainly during difficult times. Can you imagine what this last year would have been if our team didn't respond the way that we responded? This is my 16th year at the Boys and Girls Club. In a few weeks, I celebrate that milestone. Never have I been this proud to lead this team of professionals who all collectively stood up when it was hard to do so, because that's what people needed of us. We decided to do more, not knowing how long this would last. We decided to expand our services into areas that we've never, ever done before, because that's what families needed of us. We did so because it was the right thing to do. Of all the things that I'm proud of that this organization, no matter what's in front of us, no matter what obstacles exist, will always do the right thing, because that's what drives us. As we look at the year ahead, we're a few weeks away from closing out our fiscal year, and we have charts and graphs and metrics of all the incredible work that we've done this last year, and we're all extremely proud of that. But what we're most proud of is that we stood up, we stepped up when it was hard to do so. We moved when most people were stuck. And not only did that impact our organization, but I think it made it safe for other organizations like ours to feel that it was okay to move forward as well. As we look at the year ahead, we will approach the next year the exact same way that we've approached every year before us. We will continue to be committed and focused and disciplined around our mission, and with an unwavering resolve, we make a promise to every family we serve or will serve someday that we will continue to be the organization that they can depend on. And no matter what challenges come our way, we'll be ready for that. As we look at the year ahead, we have 3 priority areas that we'll be focusing on. The first is closing the achievement gap and the learning loss that was caused by this pandemic this last year, or expanded as a result of this pandemic. The second is to continue expanding our emergency safety net resources, such as the food, the shelter, the housing resources we've been providing, the blood drives, ensuring that we are filling those gaps for emergency services in the community. And the last is to address the mental health crisis that has existed for many years, but has been completely disrupted as a result of this pandemic. So first, I want to speak about the achievement gap. This isn't a new topic for us. We've talked about the achievement gap for many, many years. The achievement gap is the performance of low-income students compared to middle-income students, and how year after year they lose information, they lose knowledge and competencies during these critical summer months. and how these will eventually add up. And by the 5th grade, the average low-income student could be 2 to 3 grade levels behind their counterparts in a middle-income household. Everything that we know about what's being studied about the impacts of this virus is that the achievement gap has widened and will have a long-term effect for all students. Let me say that again. This pandemic will have an academic impact on how students have lost their learning and how that will affect their learning for the next few years. The other thing that we've learned is that all students of all income levels, no matter what zip code they live in, will have experienced some form of learning loss. As hard as our school districts pivoted, evolved, and moved learning to virtual services, and as hard as parents did everything they could to support learning at home and virtually creating their own teaching credential and hopefully appreciating the work and the effort of educators, let's face it, it wasn't the education that kids deserve. It wasn't what we would hope for them, and there's a massive hole now. This upcoming year, our organization is committed to expanding our mentor resources, our tutoring services, our targeted intervention, early literacy, and working even closer with our local school districts and our local charter schools to ensure that we are supporting them in this school year ahead. It's important that we understand that if we don't address this achievement gap and the learning loss, these kids will suffer in the long term. Second, the emergency services. These are not services that were traditional to our Boys and Girls Club prior to this last year. And while we've done certain things like food, produce days and farmers markets, never at this scale, where we have distributed almost 300,000 meals to families who are food insecure. We live in one of the most prosperous counties in the country. And still we have families that don't know where their next meal will come or whether or not they'll have a roof over their head in the following month. I would hope that we define prosperity not just by wealth and real estate values, but how we take care of those who are most vulnerable and how we prepare that next generation, the world that we give them. We will continue to provide meals. We will continue to provide technology. We will continue to provide books and learning resources and whatever it takes to make sure that our families have the resources, the support system, and the relationships to enter into this next phase of recovery of this pandemic. The work is not done. In fact, I think we have to realize that there are more families that are affected by loss of income, unemployment, underemployment, and increased cost of living. The square mile around the Boys and Girls Club in Santa Ana is one of the most densest square miles in all of the country. It ranks as one of the top 10 densest cities in America. We have families, multiple families, that are living in a one-bedroom apartment. We have families that are living in a garage. And while we all have experienced this pandemic through many different ways, I think we can all agree that those that were living in poverty have suffered the most and didn't have the opportunities and the flexibility to adjust lifestyle as others could. These emergency services are exactly that, emergencies. And we're extremely grateful to the couple of dozen nonprofits that we work with and collaborate with and share resources with so that we connect their expertise, their content experts, their resources to families who absolutely need them in order to survive. And lastly, mental health. This is not a new topic for us. I think we've all recognized that we have to be transparent, we have to have dialogue, we have to support those who are suffering. Especially these last few years as we've seen the trends for depression in kids and in teens, and the increase in teen suicides. These are trends that have been on the rise these last few years, but specifically during this pandemic are more vulnerable. It's not that difficult to understand. The isolation, the fear, the anxiety, the trauma of this pandemic, if not treated, will have lifelong or catastrophic effect on a person. We all have experienced the stress and anxiety of this pandemic. All of us have, and there's nothing wrong with that. But kids and teens were not designed for this level of trauma, and for this length of time. We must provide a voice for those who do not have one. We must provide comfort for those who need it. And we must provide support and resources to those who are suffering. We do many important things, but this is a life or death situation. If we don't address these issues, if we don't support those who are asking for help, we have to realize that we're all vulnerable. And again, what should make our community great is how we take care of those who need us. I'm an optimist. I choose to be an optimist, just like I choose to be a leader. And this last year, while we've certainly seen devastation and we've seen hurt and pain and suffering, I've also seen courage, and I've seen leadership, and I've seen generosity like never before. People like you who invest in our kids and in their future. People like you that paid someone's rent so that they weren't evicted from their home. People like you that volunteered when it wasn't something that was common to do. Everyone was trying to be safe and stay at home, and most of you, with your mask and your gloves, came out and helped us distribute on a weekly basis thousands of pounds of food and produce for families that were food insecure. I've seen what makes us great. I'm also so inspired by the next generation of leaders. Never have I met this many teen entrepreneurs or teens that have started their own nonprofit or their own social cause in their community. Teens that, while earning their high school diploma, are also earning college credit and even associate degrees. We are developing the next generation of leaders. You are a part of this organization. You drive the momentum, our relationships, and the ability for us to reach more families. And we should all be proud of that. I'm an optimist. I choose to look at all the potential that we have, whether that's in our community or whether that's in a family, or it's when you look at a kid and you see who they could become. And we get to unlock that potential. I don't know what people are going to say about this year. Many, many years down the line, we're all sitting in those rocking chairs and thinking about 2020 and how crazy that year was. But I would hope that while we recognize the pain and the suffering, we also realize the heroes that stood up when it was difficult to do so. And I think back again to that single mom who was struggling and who put herself at risk so that others could be safe, and her family, and how they did their part, and how we were a part of that, and how we supported that family, along with all the other hundreds of families that we've been able to serve. It was mentioned earlier, we started our summer program early, and we pretty much never left our summer program. We've been operating these 11-and-a-half-hour days for over a year and a half. Never in our history, in our 80-year history, have we ever done something like that. I want to thank our board of directors, because when we spoke about opening our clubs to serve the kids of healthcare workers and first responders, we were one of the first organizations to do that. And it took courage. And if it wasn't for our board of directors and their leadership and their generosity and their support and their faith, we wouldn't have been able to respond. I especially want to thank our staff, because every single one of our staff have stepped up and have put themselves on this front line so we can serve those who need us most. So as we look back, hopefully one day, we'll think about how when we were challenged, how when we were presented obstacles, we defined the word resiliency. We defined what a nonprofit should be, and that we lived our purpose. Lastly, I want to speak about the kids and the teens that we've served. Just like this club showed its values and its courage this last year, so did our kids. We have to remind ourselves what this must have been like from that point of view. I'm extremely proud to be a part of this organization. It's something that is personal to me, and something that I'm extremely grateful to be a part of with the people that serve, our staff and our board, our volunteers, our donors, and our community partners. So I want us just to take a moment to all be optimists and to think about the good and to think about how we have been a part of something bright during a very dark period of our time. Thank you for being a part of our mission. Thank you for investing in the kids and the teens and the families that we serve. And thank you for being here with us, side by side, as we serve those who need us most. Thank you.